billions of years ago. Even some Christians are going around claiming the earth is billions of years old. I debated Hugh Ross for 3 hours on the John Ankerberg show. You can get that videotape series, a whole series of tapes, me against Hugh Ross. He says the earth is billions of years old. I said, no, it's not. Quite an interesting conversation there. Who cares about the age of the earth? Well, I think this teaching of billions of years is going to put death before sin. And now you have a heresy. We cover lots more on that on the college class, CSE 101, or on our seminar part 2. Bible says death came because of man. Man brought death into the world. Well, who cares about the age of the earth? Well, number one, I think the credibility of Genesis is at stake. The question is very simple. Can the average person read that book and understand it? Or do we have to have some guru what it means? If you're in a situation where you have to have somebody tell you what that book means, you're probably in a cult. I get real nervous when somebody gets up in front of their crowd and says, well, it says in the original. In other words, you've got to have me to tell you what this really says, because you're not capable of finding it on your own. That makes me just nervous, I'll tell you right now, okay? I think the average person can read the book and understand it. We don't need anybody to tell us what it says. Secondly, the credibility of Jesus is at stake. Since he quoted that book 25 times, he must have believed in Genesis. Thirdly, nearly every other book in the Bible refers to Genesis. This is a very important topic. Now, the guys who believe in evolution really care. Because if you take away billions of years, their theory looks real silly. Jesus said, had you believed Moses, you would have believed me. He wrote of me. Let's look at some scientific ways to show the earth cannot be billions of years old. In 1999, this article came out in the newspaper announcing that the world's population had crossed over the 6 billion mark. If you don't know how much a billion is, don't worry about it, because Congress has no idea either. But in 1985, there were 5 billion people on planet Earth. In 1800, there was only 1 billion people here. Almost all textbooks agree, and almost all people who study this agree, there were around 1 billion people around 1800. It's just simple scientific fact. And everybody agrees the population is growing rapidly. Nobody argues with that. But the world is not overcrowded. Don't fall for that overcrowded propaganda going around the schools. The world's not overcrowded. The whole world's population today would fit inside Jacksonville, Florida, twice. That one city has 25 billion square feet. The world's not overcrowded. Have you driven across Nebraska? Or Kansas, or Wyoming, or Montana, or drive across Wisconsin? Folks, the world's not overcrowded. You got to fly out west like I do all the time. And it's not, look out the window, it's not overcrowded. Hey, if it's overcrowded where you are, move. Because lots of places are not overcrowded, okay? Figure it out. Not overcrowded, come on. But back when Jesus was here, there was about 1/4 billion people on planet Earth. 250 million. It sure looks like from the population growth curve that the whole population today started about 4,400 years ago. Well, that's interesting. The Bible teaches God made everything about 6,000 years ago. 4,400 years ago, there was a big flood. 8 people survived, Noah's family. If you start with a population of 8 people, having kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, you can get yourself a population of 5 or 6 billion in a few thousand years. Now, if you believe in evolution, you got a problem. Because you think man's been here for 3 million years. Wow. In 3 million years, the population would have grown. Right now, there would be 150,000 people per square inch. That would be crowded. No, man's not been here for no 3 million years. God told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Have lots of kids. Fill it up. Have a big family. But Satan wants to destroy God's plan. God formed the world to be inhabited, he told us in Isaiah 45. That's why he did it, inhabit it. But we got folks like Jacques Cousteau who said we need to reduce the population of the earth. He said we need to eliminate 350,000 people a day to save Mother Earth. Ted Turner said we need a 95% decline in population levels. Okay, Ted, you first. There are some folks who would like to reduce the population to 500 million as soon as possible. They've got their grandiose plans toward a new world order with them in charge and all of us gone or slaves. But the idea is to have 500 million people. See, the Lord told the devil in the Garden of Eden, you're going to crawl on your belly and eat dust all your life. And then he said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head. Satan knows some seed of the woman's going to bruise his head. And so he's been trying desperately through all of humanity, history, trying to destroy every human being on the planet. He absolutely hates people. Remember when Herod wanted to kill baby Jesus in Bethlehem? What did he do? Slew all the children. Let's just be sure to get the right one. And Satan seems to want to kill all of humanity. And he's putting this idea into the heads of some of his followers that they need to reduce the population of the planet. We could talk for hours about that, and get my CSE College Class 101 if you want a whole lot more on the New World Order plans on reducing the population, coming soon. Well, regardless of what happens to the population in the future, the fact is the chart today shows man's only been here about 3,000 or 6,000 years or less. 4,400 would fit fine with the population growth. If you go outside the city of Atlanta, Georgia, to the town of Elberton and go north about 7 or 8 miles, you'll see the Georgia Guidestones out in the middle of no place. They mine quite a bit of granite there. The Cherokees called this area the center of the earth. They thought that was the center of the earth right there. Well, a bunch of guys who don't know much said, wow, let's set up big rocks here. And they put these big rocks up there with 12 different languages on them that says the 10 commandments for the New World Order. Commandment number 1 for the New World Order is maintain humanity under 1/2 billion. They think we need to reduce the population of the planet as soon as possible. It's interesting, they ran an article here recently. They said sometime in the past, population of man went through a bottleneck. They said it dropped down to only a few thousand people about 70,000 years ago. Well, I think they're getting close to the truth. I think it dropped down to 8 people about 4,400 years ago. Yeah. The galaxies up there are spinning, but the stars on the inside are going faster than the stars on the outside. The galaxies gradually lose their spiral shape. So the question is, if they're billions of years old, why are they still spiral-shaped? Why are there spiral galaxies? Well, to the Christian creationist, this is no problem. They're not billions of years old. Real simple. Stars are blowing up once in a while. We call it a nova or a supernova. And yet there's only about, seems to happen about every 30 years, kind of as a rough average. When they look through the heavens, though, they find less than 300 supernova rings. That's only a few thousand years worth. Why aren't there millions of them? Some evolutionists say, well, new stars are forming to replace the ones that are blowing up. Well, that's baloney. Nobody's ever seen a star forming. We cover lots more on that on video number 7. The teachers are taught to tell their kids that red stars slowly evolve into white dwarf stars, and it takes billions and billions of years for this to happen. That's what the textbooks teach. Well, it does seem to be true that red stars apparently change to white stars, but it doesn't take billions of years for this to happen. All the ancient astronomers described Sirius as a red star. Everybody said it was red. Study back in history. Sirius was a red star. Today, Sirius is a white dwarf star. We know what happens in less than 2,000 years, yet the textbook says it takes billions of years. Some of the planets are cooling off. You can't just keep cooling off. Pretty soon you're cooled off. I mean, if you came in the room and found a cup of coffee on the table, and I said, don't touch the coffee, it's hot. And you said, whose is it? I said, I don't know, it's been sitting there for 400 years. It's kind of hard to believe, don't you think? It's still hot after 400 years. These planets cannot be billions of years old. Jupiter has a moon called Ganymede, but it still has a strong magnetic field indicating a hot inner core. Even the atheists will admit it should have cooled off billions of years ago. Well, it's not billions of years old, figure it out. Saturn has rings around it, but the rings are slowly moving away from the planet. Saturn's rings are indication that it is not billions of years old. The moon is going around the earth. How many knew that already? The moon goes around the earth? Okay. Did you know as the moon goes around, it's gradually getting further away? We're slowly losing the moon. It's only a few inches a year, no big deal, nothing to worry about. Plus, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. But the moon is getting farther from the earth every year. Now, kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. The moon is getting farther from the earth every year. So that means that it used to be closer. How many can figure this out with no help at all? Okay? Well, if you bring the moon in closer, you start to create a problem because the moon causes the tides. Now, you folks up here in Wisconsin probably don't worry about the tides. But in Pensacola, where I live, you worry about the tides. If you brought the moon in closer, the tides would be higher. There's a law called the inverse square law. if you brought the moon into 1/3 the distance, you take the 1/3, inverse it, and square it, it's 9 times the gravitational pull. If you run all the math on this, you'll find out about 1.2 billion years ago, the moon was whizzing around just above the surface of the earth. That explains what happened to at least the tall dinosaurs. They got mooned. You can't say it's 4.6 billion years old. I'm sorry, that's just geophysically impossible. Comets are flying around through space, but they're always losing material. That's what makes the tail on a comet. You know, the stuff is blowing off. They only last about 10,000 years. Because you can't just keep losing and losing. You know, pretty soon it's gone. It's kind of like your checkbook. See, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall every time. Well, comets are losing material. They last about 10,000 years, and poof, they're gone. I mentioned in a seminar one time that comets indicate the solar system is less than 10,000 years old. And this one atheist went home and did